Hi guys, it's Shayla again from Freckle Finance, and I figured I would do a video explaining how we were able to cheaply get our money to the US. I will preface this by saying that there is the easy way and then there is the inexpensive way, and the two are not the same, unfortunately. When discussing with people how they moved their money from Canada to the US, most of them said they did a wire transfer. Now, if you look online, wire transfers cost money. There's either a percentage that they take as a profit, there might be a flat fee up to a certain number of dollars, and overall it can quite add up, or they give you what the current exchange rate is, which is actually worse than the current exchange rate, and they take the profit out of that. If you only have a little bit of Canadian that you're converting to the US, it might be worth it to do the wire transfer, as it won't actually cost you that much money. However, the more money you have, the more expensive that wire transfers get. So the technique that we used is called NORBERT GAMBIT. This is something that I learned from the financial independence community, because they tend to be the community that has a lot of money that they need to transfer somewhere, whereas other finance communities may not have quite the wealth of money in their bank accounts. So I bet you're wondering, what the heck is NORBERT GAMBIT? NORBERT GAMBIT is when you take your money that you want to transfer over and you invest all of that in the Canadian market in a stock or fund that is transferable to the US market. You purchase that investment and then you ask that it gets transferred, and this is the loophole around not having to pay exchange rates on top of the regular exchange, because the value will be transferred directly from the Canadian market to the American market at exact value. Now, when I first heard of this, I thought, simple, that can be done in like a day. However, it wasn't. The first step we had to do was get my money into my husband's account. We didn't want to have to pay a wire transfer fee because we were trying to do this as cheaply as possible. So the first thing we did is, before we moved here, we sold all of our investments, so everything was in cash, but they were still in investments. We used my husband's investment account to do the NORBERT GAMBIT, so we had to transfer money from my account to his. So I called up Questrade, the online brokerage that I used and am still using for my RRSPs, and asked them to take everything out of my tax-free savings account and deposit it into my bank account. And that itself took several days. At this point, I wanted to transfer it from my account to my husband's account. At this point, I had misplaced my checkbook, which I have since found, and so we had to come up with another way, because I can't just go to the bank because PC Bank doesn't exist in the US. So the first thing is, we tested with a small amount of money to make sure that I was actually paying his credit card, because the last thing you want to do is put a lot of money on somebody else's credit card. And as a side note, your credit card can be very much in the positive. It's not an issue. So we had to wait a few days to make sure that the first transaction went through before I sent the rest of my money over. And then it was time for my husband to take the money off his credit card and get it into his brokerage account. Now, funny story, you cannot withdraw more than $15,000, at least from his credit card. So that also took several days, because he could only do $15,000 at a time. And then finally, we were able to buy the investment on the Canadian market. I will put in the comments down below what stock he ended up buying. The reason that he purchased the one that he did, and this is not the only one that would work, is that it is a very stable stock. It doesn't often increase, but it also doesn't often decrease. So for the period of a week that it takes to do this transaction, we hopefully wouldn't lose a lot of money, but we wouldn't expect to gain any money really either. So from there, he made the purchase, and then it takes a few days for your purchase to settle. And once that happens, then you get it transferred to the American market, and you have to wait for that to settle. And once that happens, you can start selling that investment again, and you'll have to wait a few days again for the sale to settle. And then finally, our money was in US investments, but funny story, the money was still in Canada. So we went to Canada for the holidays, and we got our wire transfer started and completed to our US account. And this is a little different than wire transferring from Canadian dollar to American dollar. We're just wire transferring from bank account to a separate bank account, as we do have a US dollar account with TD. And a wire transfer like that is a lot cheaper than trying to get a wire transfer while exchanging money, because it's a lot more expensive to exchange your money. If you've ever experienced going to the bank and trying to get out cash for going on a trip somewhere in a different country, then you will know that you always get less money than you would expect when you look up the current day's exchange rate. Now that we have our money in an American account in US dollars, What we will be doing with it is the money that we are using for a down payment on a house, we are not going to be investing at this point. It is too risky because it's a short-term plan to be putting into the market, as we might lose a significant chunk of that down payment. So we're not going to do that. I will look into very short-term stuff, but we're not sure how long we're going to wait to buy a house. So at this point, we are just keeping it out of the market. And we will be doing research to make sure that we have a well-diversified portfolio for the rest of our money that we're putting back into the market, because diversification is key when trying to invest long-term for the future, especially for financial independence. When I know what investments we have and what percentages, I will let you guys know. So as you can see, there is a lot of steps when using the Norbert Gambit. So if it's only a little bit of money and it's only going to cost $100 or whatnot, you can assess what would be considered not worth your time to do all that whole process. As well, keep in mind that there is cost to purchasing and selling investments. However, with a large chunk of money, that cost is extremely minimal. But when you have a small amount of money, it can be significantly more. So while Norbert Gambit is not the best option always, it is a great option if you have enough money in your account to make it worthwhile. And let's give a big thumbs up for getting my money over to the US. I just wanted to have a little aside for anyone curious to why we did move all of our money except our RSPs over, because it's possible that they didn't see the video previously that we discussed it in. And the reason is that we can't be deemed non-resident if you keep too many stakes within Canada, and having investments in Canada is one of them. However, RSPs is almost always excluded from that equation when the government is deeming whether you are a resident or not. And being deemed a non-resident means we will no longer have to pay taxes to Canada, which are higher, which means we will always, on top of our taxes to California, owe taxes to Canada. As well, remember that no matter what your financial situation is, make sure to have a great day. Bye.